Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tipsy Time Machine.
Do we need more
in person.
panelists or more audience chairs?
I think we do, actually.
Do you know where we can grab some?
Yeah, we're going to go right down the hall. We're going to steal some from one of the other rooms that's named after a city in Venice. I don't know. Italy.
This is it. Need more chairs.
Sorry, buddy. Sorry. Oh, sorry there, buddy. I'm not your pal, buddy.
Not your buddy guy.
I'm not your guy, friend.
Ain't your friend, because
There you go.
Do we need a chair up there for a noodle?
we're watching. We don't know. What is this?
No, this is Tipsy Time Machine, where we get together and make fools of ourselves for entertainment.
Haven't we been doing that all weekend?
Oh, yes, but now we should talk about history and decide who gets to be on the $20
Okay, so
bill.
I'll go grab it quick and then...
Alright.
We're gonna prove. Oh, are you gonna?
Yes, I'm gonna kill myself a little bit, and I'll be pooling later because I actually brought some from
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
What time do you?
All right, I will be right back. I'm going to go grab some.
No problem. No problem. Okay.
Thank you. Except for the handle.
I think we're over here, guys.
Yep, right in here.
Oh, okay.
Ferret, follow the sound of my voice. Oh, there it is. Tiny ferret.
Oh,
Oh, good.
he's doing the panel for me.
Okay. Okay, fine. I'll just
Sounds just like you.
I'll just do what you do. No, wait, no. There's no room. There's no room here for me to shove my hand up his ass and make his mouth move. I mean, come on. It worked for you when you were fucking that puppet. Yeah. I've never heard you make that.
Coffee.
I've never heard you make that sound before.
It's hot water, hot water. Damn, I don't need coffee. There is coffee. I'm gonna go find coffee. I'll be right back.
Okay.
That's on the other side of the hotel, I just realized. Shouldn't this be starting, or are we just waiting on boozing?
We're gathering everybody else up because you guys, literally all of us were stuck in who's line.
Yes.
Do you want a coffee?
If they're not here yet, I'm gonna go grab my coffee. I'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, sorry for the slow start, but literally all of us were stuck in whose line is it anyway, and now we're just trying to pull all of resource and get us in here. Usually we would do this panel just before Mystery Science Theater on Thursdays, but because of timing and scheduling, this is where we got stuck. But it'll work out just fine because, hey, it's Saturday afternoon, we're all tired, we're at the perfect mentality to do some time traveling.
And by time travel rules, it also is Saturday night.
Yeah, well, it's Saturday night somewhere. So how many of you guys have been to Tipsy Time Machine before, or are you all new? Oh, cool. I'm always glad to have new people. Last year's was a big success, so hopefully this year's will be pretty good. Let me ask you guys, what's your favorite time period? Do you have a favorite historical time period you like to learn about? Alkali went to get coffee.
Oh, okay. I just passed him.
We like names.
Oh, look, a
I
bottle.
mean, that I like to learn about is the 1950s. I love doo-wop and swing music. But
Okay.
like, you know, as a trans person, I'm gonna stay in this time period.
Well, that'll be interesting because that's one of our first questions is, like, what's the worst time period for the modern furry fandom to exist in?
Anywhere before the 1960s.
So, no, I would say it goes back even further than that. The very worst time period for any our fandom to exist in is obviously the 20s. Why? Because, you know, it's not really that bad. Men wear classy
Oh,
suits.
no alcohol.
The women wear good stuff. And you know what? Yeah, it doesn't have the one thing we all need for our natural sustenance. We don't have any booze. It's all been outlawed, which means this panel is illegal.
Well, funny story. The county I grew up in, Scoop County, Pennsylvania, they would send the prohibition officers in. They sent the first one in. The guy came back in pretty rough condition. They sent the second one in. The guy was barely walking. They sent the third one in. They wrecked the guy so bad, they thought he was going to die. And they said, we will kill the fourth one. And they stopped sending prohibition officers in.
Yeah, that's basically how that worked. Prohibition was one of those magical time periods in America where where society in general said, hey, government, can you do something about this alcohol problem? And the government said, yeah, sure, we can fix that if you'll give us a little something in return called federal income tax. And the people said, sure, that doesn't sound bad at all. You can take our booze and we'll give you a nice fat federal income tax. That won't backfire on us in any way. But oh look, unlike my panelists here who are now coming in, finally.
I'm the ferret,
Yeah,
right?
the Yingling Brewery, actually, which is in Cook County, they, at the end of Prohibition, they opened the brewery back up and sent a truckload of beer to the White House.
Am I doing how you listen to this
Today,
Grant
it
impersonation?
was legalized again.
You'll get a cup.
If you're aware of how long it takes to brew beer, it was definitely prepared ahead of time.
I also need a cup.
Oh, have we done the introduction things yet?
No, we have not. I was just about to get there. I will drink mine in a styrofoam cup.
Where do you
like a
keep
proper
getting
Lola.
tubs?
Yeah, where did you get rid
Do not drink booze out of a styrofoam cup that stuff breaks down. Take a actual.
All right, let's do the intro.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tipsy Time Machine.
Woo! What's this panel rated?
This panel is rated.
Tipsy.
This panel is rated PG-13, but it should be 18.
Are there minors in the room?
I mean, I've
Okay.
dug for cold.
Oh, okay, cool.
Oh, okay.
That's actually what I was like. Look,
Yeah.
were you at my panel earlier?
No.
Okay. I did a panel about 2 years ago, and I, like this gentleman here, had a bad habit of going blue without realizing it.
Oh yeah.
So I was dropping a bunch of curse words, and I went, oh crap, are there kids in the room? So I said, yeah, there's a table of kids right there. And I looked, and I'm like, oh wait, those are mine. They're used to this.
Thank goodness they time traveled.
Ernor, it's your panel. Start us off.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tipsy Time Machine, the show inspired by drunk history, but only run by furries.
Yeah.
Down in the end of the panel, we have my good friends, QM and Boozy. And some large gentlemen. Who the hell are you?
I have no idea. I am a meat popsicle.
Oh, good. Well, just what I needed.
My name is Alkali. It's a pleasure to be here, and let's get drunk.
Here's the charity bag, because everything's a charity panel. from here
Yes,
on in.
please, God. Always. Everything's a
No,
charity.
seriously,
panel.
I can't throw it. Like, it's not going anywhere. Pass it around. Remember, we're helping the Ohio Animal Rescue, right? Or
You guys
Or-
got money into it.
what?
Or all the animals will be out on the street, and that will suck.
Yeah, it will suck. You know what would really suck, guys? We're gonna have a serious conversation here for just a second because I need to know what is the worst time period for the modern furry fandom to try to exist in. I mean, your wife and I have been talking, but Boozy, I'd like to hear what do you think the worst time period for the modern furry fandom to exist in would
That's
be?
easy. What do you got? Worst time period?
The
for
worst time period for the modern furry fandom to exist.
Yeah, like if we were all transported back in time right now, where would we?
I mean, I'm gonna say the Revolutionary War, because neon green foxes would stand out in the forest.
Okay. That makes sense. Alkali.
The big chill.
The big chill.
The big chill.
Fursuits keep you warm.
Not during the Paleozoic era.
Have you tested it?
We are time traveling only for 5 minutes. Then I found a T-Rex.
Once upon a time and multiple timelines.
Once upon a time in multiple timelines.
Once upon a time in multiple timelines.
Then we were driven back in time to the actual worst time period, the early 1700s. Why? Because what's booming? The fucking fur trade.
Oh my God! Can I get a Majira Pelt hat?
Now, hold on. I am an economist. I can tell you this right now. When there is something booming, that means that it is also available for a cheaper price. The 1700s fursuits would have been half the cost they are now. Also, way cheaper because at that time, amputation was very commonplace. You're not going to need a full suit. Partials are fine. You look like the fucker from Monty Python. Sorry.
No, their mom's there. It's cool.
Oh, cool. You look like the fucker from Monty Python. No arms, no legs, no problem. Fursuit, 50% off.
So Roman times fursuits. Like mersuits back then probably would have been incredible, but then you also have the problem with like taking that thing into the vomitorium with you.
You took it. I was trying to.
That's not what vomitorium meant!
It is if you're drunk!
It was a vomitorium. The vomitorium, it was not a place where people purged and vomited. That is a myth. Vomitorium literally meant exit. Vomitus, to expel. The vomitorium, like when you hear, the Romans had a vomitorium. Yeah, they did. You can see it today. It's the exit of the Colosseum.
Whoa. It's a sign, vomitorium sign.
That is a vomitorium. There is the vomitorium.
Okay,
The ancient
poor guy
reality
was so
vomitorium.
confused. He walked into the room and he said, "There's the vomitorium. We're really sorry.
No,
we
Fine,
think
I
you're
just
drunk."
got tail, but it was time.
Nice.
To put this all in context, guys, yeah, it would be terrible for the furries to exist in the Roman times, but damn, it would have made Pompeii so much more interesting for those scientists. They're digging through the dirt, like, oh, here's
Oh
a
my
guy.
God.
Here's a guy curled up in
I'm
a
back
fetal
on
position.
Southwest!
Here's a guy curled up who has no idea where he is. There's a guy trapped in a cell. What the fuck is this thing? It looks like a man, but it's shaped like an animal. Holy shit, were all those stories the Romans put on the side of their urns weren't all bullshit.
Actually, you know a fun fact about Pompeii? There's parts of it that for years they wouldn't let you see, like they didn't advertise them. You know why? Because the art was incredibly graphic. The public bath in Pompeii, like the lockers,
Oh yeah,
have the most obscene sex acts ever painted in them.
yeah.
Until furry fandom, they were the most obscene sex acts.
Oh, yeah.
There is the way to the brothel is marked by a literal dick in the side in the cobbles pointing you there.
Fun fact, why did they have their lockers in the public bathhouse, which isn't like a bathhouse that you're gonna find here? Why did they have them painted like that? Because they didn't have locker numbers. So if you're like, hey, could you go grab my toga? Where is it? It's in the two guys running a train on someone. It's in the horse fucking the virgin. By the way, don't forget my watch. It's stone, and it just...
Oh yeah. By the way,
Just a sundial. It doubles as a pair of brass knuckles for when Felibius really pisses me off and took the rest of my wine, and I've got to give him a little what for.
If you get a chance, they actually translated the graffiti in the bathhouses. And
What did they use for phone numbers? Cave number?
Actually, you're not far off.
Yeah.
No.
Go to this place, so-and-so sucks dick.
Nice.
Like, that's what the graffiti
Nice.
translates to.
Call Brutus on sundial for a good time.
I know it's
We'll
Roman
really
times.
stab you from behind.
There you go, you took it.
So, I understand that this is Roman times, but now I want this in like ancient Egypt just so it's hieroglyphics of people giving butt stuff.
Wait, so it now makes sense now. Egypt, ancient Egypt, they created E621!
Okay,
I just want some.
so fun fact. We should probably go through credentials to some extent.
Oh, yeah.
Ernor, what are your historical credentials?
I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in both history and public history. I am certified to teach history in a museum setting, a national park setting, or a historical setting. Alkali, what the fuck can you do?
I talked for Ernor for 1 hour without interrupting him and now feel like I know everything in history, so that was fun.
I just came here to give him his top hat
And now you're here.
yeah.
Chris, now you're trapped
This is
with us.
Chris.
Hi, I know about cartoons
Good.
in history.
There we go.
Chris, you've come to the right panel.
I have one question though. I do have one question. I've heard this, and I want to ask people that know what they're talking about. Is it true that in ancient Greek they actually had billboards, and like the reason they didn't put it in certain movies because even though it's historically accurate, nobody wants to see like a giant Greek billboard?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know
The
that.
Romans did that too.
Yeah. Like I want to double
They
check.
weren't like it wasn't like your ad here, Cole. But they would like the barn paintings and stuff you'll see. You know,
Yeah.
visit Crystal Cave and all that. They would do that on the side of buildings.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to double check.
That's really
So
Who are you?
my credentials are much like Ernor's. I have a bachelor's in history. I also have a master's in history. My focus was antebellum American history with a focus on the socio-political transfer into the southern Appalachian mountain range of the Germans. My minor was in the downfall of the Soviet Union.
Nice.
My Alexandrian history course was actually taught by the leading expert in Alexandrian history.
Wow, and my Soviet history course was taught by a drunk Ukrainian who would often come in and share vodka with us.
My Soviet history course was taught by the first American to have access to the Kremlin archives back in the 70s.
Oh, wow. You lucky bastard.
He described his thesis defense. Somebody said, well, how do you square your view of this event in the 1940s with the modern perspective? And he told me his entire thesis defense was, I've seen the papers and you haven't.
I skipped classes and watched cartoons.
Good job, Chris.
I'm so good.
Hello, furry fan.
That sounds about right. QM.
My credentials are, I have a bachelor's in history I don't use, so there's that.
Well, okay, so you're basically most history students. Got it.
Exactly.
Got it right now.
I'm a business major.
You know how I ended up in history?
So how's that?
I was studying for psychology, and after one semester,
That makes sense.
I went in and I said, I want to change my major to history. And they said, why? And I said, I realized I don't care about living people's problems that much.
Screw the living people. It's much more fun to study the 3Ds. Dates, dead guys, and dust.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I tell people, you'd never want to climb inside my head because A, being educated is no guarantee against personal stupidity, and B, it's all full of shit, full of a bunch of irrelevant shit that nobody cares about except for historical.
Plus, it looks kind of small, and I'm a big guy.
Yeah.
This is how we die.
But so, if we're going to talk about history, I want to talk about something that's kind of recent, but is still very near and dear to my heart. Guys, they're about to change the $20 bill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know they picked Harry Tubman, but fuck that. We've got a panel full of experts here. We can do a better job than they can. Who do we want to replace Andrew Jackson on the $20 bill? And bear in mind, whoever you put on there, their face will be regularly shoved into a stripper's ass, a hardworking stripper's ass, to make sure that they know they're doing a good job. So please, keep that in mind.
I'm still for Harriet Tubman.
Yeah?
You got nothing to do with the stripper. Look, Harriet Tubman is fucking awesome. Like, that was one of the things that I had a wonderful chance to study, was the history of those movements. Harriet Tubman stole herself out of slavery. That's the phrase they use, stealing yourself. Crossed the river, made it into Canada, and then under threat of death, because there were death prices on her head. Slave owners wanted her dead. They didn't want her captured, they wanted her dead. Continuously crossed the border to lead other slaves back to freedom. Fucking put Harriet Tubman on the 20.
Sure, she could take it.
I bet.
She can do that, she could take anything.
Yeah. I mean, plus, you know, it would make rich white guys look at her while they're snorting cocaine, and I'm cool with that.
For me, I mean, I've got to go back to one of my old favorites. You guys probably see this coming, but god damn it, Teddy Roosevelt deserves to be on a goddamn bill.
Yes.
He is the most. I know everybody loves to lift Teddy up and claim him as this paragon of virtue, but god damn it, he was. This is a man who was giving a speech, a political speech for the presidency. He did not win, but while he was giving a speech, an assassin walked up to him and shot him twice in the chest from close range. And against the advice of on-the-scene doctors who told him, Mr. President, you need to go to the hospital right now. He basically stood up, dusted himself off, said, fuck that, it's okay. The bullet smashed my spectacle case in my breast pocket, so it didn't actually go all that deep in. I can still stand up and deliver my speech. And he opened it by saying, it takes more than 2 bullets to kill a bull moose.
Teddy Roosevelt, one of my favorite, somebody be like, you know, Teddy Roosevelt had asthma as a child, and he beat it. I'm like, no, it's Teddy Roosevelt. He didn't just beat asthma.
He made it his bitch.
Yeah, Teddy Roosevelt took asthma under the bridge, drowned it in the Hudson River, kicked its corpse a few times, and then went and fucked its mom.
Not only that, he was so badass. At the age of 63, he went with his 2 sons into the heart of the Amazon to travel down what was then known as the River of Doubt. It was a section of the Amazon River that had never been mapped before, ever. And they were woefully underprepared. There's a book that I just recently read on it called, funnily enough, The River of Doubt. And it's one of the best biographies you can find on this chapter of Roosevelt's life, where you find out that not only was his vision so terrible that he was a worse shot than his son from about 10 feet away, but halfway through the trip, they ran out of food except for their fancy mustard spread, tea cakes, and pepper. Not the actual pepper, not pepper coyote, because there wouldn't have been enough.
Wait, pepper tobacco?
Yeah, wouldn't have been enough for him to go around. But they ran out of food, and the president, after about 3 months, was down to only one pair of long johns because termites had broken into all of their stores and eaten their underwear.
You know what that river's called now?
The Roosevelt.
The Rio Roosevelt, the Roosevelt River. Fun fact about that, though, that's probably the trip that killed him.
It was. He never did recover.
He never recovered. He contracted pneumonia and never did recover.
Yeah, I've got a question in the back.
Is it true that President Roosevelt had a pet badger?
Yes, he did.
I didn't know that.
Yes, he had President Roosevelt on a campaign tour. Was on the back of a train, I think in Wisconsin.
I don't know that story.
Yeah, he was on the back of the train. He was doing a campaign, a whistle stop tour, and a young girl came running up to him and gave him an animal, and the animal was a baby badger that he took back to the White House and raised as his own. There are letters from White House attendants. The badger would terrorize them, would hide and jump out and bite their ankles. Like the only people who could touch the badger were members of the Roosevelt family, much as of today.
And that badger's name? What's your mom's name?
At the end of the day, though, the badger became so destructive in the White House that they gave the badger to the National Zoo, where the Roosevelt family, until the badger's death, continued to go visit it. Teddy Roosevelt. Has anybody here seen Deadwood? The HBO series Deadwood?
I have.
I've always
It's not a
meant to.
cartoon, but...
Seth Bullock is a character played by Timothy Oliphant in Deadwood. He was an actual marshal in Deadwood, South Dakota, during that time period. The actual Seth Bullock became friends with Teddy Roosevelt.
Nice.
He served in the Rough Riders.
Okay.
He campaigned for Roosevelt, and Roosevelt appointed him a U.S. Marshal for that territory.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep.
Wow, truth in television. So, QM, who do you think should be on the $20 bill?
Well, I am a big fan of Harriet Tubman.
Okay.
I mean, I think they chose well there. But like
If you had to pick somebody else.
my runner-up would be probably Cassius Marcellus Clay, who is an
Okay.
anti-slavery activist. He survived several assassination attempts. He actually got shot, found the people who shot him, and did a number back on them.
Okay.
But yeah, he basically, if you read his story, there is a recurring theme of him getting jumped by people who were not fans of his activism, and he would stab them, shoot them in return. The people who walked away from encounters with him did not walk away unscathed at all.
Okay.
Nice.
That's pretty good. Alkali, who would you put on a $20 bill?
We're going to have to do a bit of shuffling here. First off, unrelated, we kill the penny. That's just feasible and economical, and get rid of that piece of crap.
Goddamn
But
right.
you know how you kill the penny.
How do you kill the penny?
You take it to Ford's Theater and sit it down for a play.
I'll give it a shot. So that's the first thing.
Took a minute, give me, yeah.
But you can't.
So we kill the penny.
Yeah, you can't just go up to it. You've got to creep up from behind, otherwise you'll scare it away.
We kill the penny. Next, we got to fix a few things. I totally agree. I cannot wait for Tubman to be on the 20. But if we're shifting everything around, Tubman doesn't deserve the 20. Tubman deserves the 100. So we're going to put Tubman on the 100, and we need to move Ben, because when I think of debauchery, I think of a $20 bill. And that man was history's greatest lecher.
He was a
That
super
man
pimp.
went to France and just had a wonderful romp through the countryside with everyone and everything. And if you get a chance, read this man's memoirs. There's a few great books out there that are basically first-hand examples of how much of a playa that this man was. He deserves to be on the 20. If you're going to snort coke, you do it through a Franklin.
Did you ever read the letter that Franklin wrote to a young associate and the advice he gave him?
Yes, I
The
have.
advice was sleep with older women. They know what they're doing. Like, that's literally what it was. Like, Dr. Franklin, what advice should you give me? Fuck the elderly.
I know that the people at this table will probably know this. This one's for you guys. Ben Franklin had a different idea for the national bird of these United States of America. Does anyone know what that bird was? I know you know, too. Give them a chance. What do you think it was?
I think it was a turkey, wasn't it?
It was the...
It was the turkey, and you know why?
No.
Turkeys are indigenous to North America. They originally did not exist anywhere else in the world.
You know, I never actually knew the reason, to be honest
Yep.
with you. I just knew the fact.
Turkeys are indigenous birds that
Nice.
that no variation of which existed anywhere else.
So they lost the bill, and now we eat them once a year?
Well, we pardoned one,
Oh, good.
which is why Trump bought a turkey costume this year.
Now I have a chance.
That's your one. We don't talk about modern politics here. That's the one rule that I have for this panel. We don't.
That's acceptable.
Yeah, we don't do that here. Instead, we're going to talk about terrible politics from a long time ago.
Wonderful. Let's talk about Andrew Johnson.
All right. No, we still have one more person for the
How about
20.
not?
Yes,
Chris?
you didn't
Oh,
answer.
Chris.
Oh yeah. Well, two things. One, Harriet Tubman has an animated TV movie called like Classic Heroes. Yeah, it basically sets up like, hey, this is the like very simplistic version of Harriet Tubman's story. But also mice are there as a B plot, like kind of helping Harriet out. It's kind of fucked up. It's like it removes an element of her agency for talking mice because it's animated. You can do that. They did the same thing with George Washington Carver as well. It's really weird. But if I had to pick someone to put on a $20 bill, might as well just file a suit and I'd pick Fievel.
Bible!
I
He
mean,
went west.
he did come from an American tale.
Oh my god, okay, so the thing is, Fievel is such a perfect example of, like, the immigration of people and then living in that time frame and the struggle that they fought with. But then you have the second movie, which usually a sequel is a piece of shit, but they chose to take with the Western expansion themes and played upon the immigration process of within the confines of America.
Really?
Yeah, they did, yeah.
I missed the part of that movie where Fievel and his dad go out and slaughter the indigenous peoples for their land.
Well, it was the cat.
That wasn't you. That was him. That was the cat.
It was the
That was the cat?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just get it straight here. The Russian Jews are mice, and the cats are every other European.
Pretty much, yeah. That's pretty accurate.
Yeah, pretty much.
Look, I hate to say it, and I'm not being political when I say this. When you look back at American history, especially in that period, you have to accept one thing. We were incredibly bigoted.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And-
Astonishingly so.
And unlike now, when you're like, I don't believe it, and people are like, okay, well, you're a moron. Then, like, the European peoples who had taken large swaths of land going, you know what? We don't believe you're equal to us. Didn't result in you going, fuck you. It resulted in you getting killed. It was like, you're less than us. Therefore, we're going to shoot you and take your land.
Yeah,
Maybe if you're lucky, somewhere down the line, your descendants will become alcoholics and maybe get a casino.
Don't get me started.
don't worry.
Yeah.
Slowly,
No shit, right?
the way it works is we get really tired of being racist, and new races get the white card.
Actually, no lie. I studied this. I studied this. Is okay. Understand. In the study of history, there are different areas of study. There's political historians, there's social historians, there's economic historians. There's ones that meld that, socio-political historians, where you look at both the sociological and political aspects of history, the economic, and they all will start to overlap at some point in time. But the largest determinator of what is and is not the white majority in the United States, economic prosperity. Economic prosperity. When you look back, white used to mean you were a Protestant and you were English. And that's it. Scottish, Irish, Eastern European, Jewish, none of them were considered white, but as each group rose to prominence politically and economically, they then became accepted by the majority. And that's how we have evolved into the idea of the white race in the United States, the majority in the United States. Are you rich enough and powerful enough that we cannot ignore you?
Yes.
Boy, isn't it nice that we're in a nation that's basically an island. We don't have to worry about any of those troublesome European wars or anything making us feel...
Yeah, it's worked out really well in the past.
Yeah, making us feel empathy for other countries.
Can we talk about something a little more funny?
I think we
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
The third American tale.
Let's talk about the Armenian genocide, huh? Who's taller?
And I do have something else I want to ask you guys. I do have one a personal question. Chris, I did promise you that cartoons would come up.
What's up?
Anyway,
I'll make
so
it happen.
Oh, no, I know you're going to make it happen, so I'm going to head you off at the pass and bring it up before you can.
All right, do it up.
Guys, every year at this panel, cartoons come up. So, I'm going to give you guys at least 2 to 3 minutes to talk about a cartoon that you, Chris.
Okay, it's okay.
Constrain yourself. I know you're excited.
2 to 3 minutes is not a lot of time.
Oh no! Okay, no, that's because you got to pick one. I know there's
there are so many.
I know there's about a dozen, but you got to pick one, and you can pick that one, and you can shout it to the heavens and spray it all over the audience.
Okay.
So
okay, I think I got it.
I want you guys to pick one cartoon from your childhood that you revere and you think needs a little bit more exposure, and explain why. For me, I'm going to go with a classic. I really enjoy Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Oh, yes.
Because that is a show that is not only has artistic value, it has
my stoner show.
Oh God. It has artistic value in terms of the storyboarding. The music is incredible. The theming is incredible because not only it's not a story about a dog who is brave because he's dealing with scary things. Sometimes he deals with scary stuff that's personal, like, oh no, there's a spooky man living in a tower that I think is terrible, but all he really needs is a hug or a shoulder to lean on. It's about having the courage to get up and deal with situations that you're not comfortable with, even if that discomfort means reaching out to somebody who needs it. And I think that is why the show is incredible. Also, the dog is cool.
Also, Courage the Cowardly Dog is written from the perspective of a dog. That's why all the villains are just like normal shit.
Exactly.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Courage is an amazing show. Highly recommended.
Yeah, Dill is a god.
I'm going to make mine short and sweet because you said from the childhood. There is a historical, I guess you could call it a historical cartoon that was on for maybe a season and a half during Saturday morning cartoons when I was growing up.
Liberty
it's
Kids?
called Crow.
Oh, Crow.
Yeah.
Crow.
I've
I
never
love
heard of
that
this one.
show.
I used to enjoy that show. Crow is about a woolly mammoth that a bunch of kids find and defrost him. I'm assuming
What?
somewhere in the kitchen.
What?
And then the kids have problems, like math class. And instead of helping them with the problems, this woolly mammoth goes, well, you know, back in my time, here's something that barely has anything to do with what you're talking about. And the children stop working on whatever the problem is and sit down, and then you have a flashback to the woolly mammoth and a
Well, and wasn't there
caveman.
Cro-Magnum Kid?
The Cro-Magnum Kid. And then they would solve a problem slightly related, go back in the future, and these genius children would be like, ah, yes, he did figure out how showers work. Quantum mathematics, easy. And that was the entire show. Yeah, that was an 80s cartoon.
Hey, that's
that is a
80s
late
AF.
80s cartoon.
80s AF. That's like slam your head on a 20.
Hold on. We're going to go 80s as up. You ready?
Oh, yeah.
Denver, the last dinosaur. He's my friend and a whole lot more.
Okay.
Thank you, Pepper.
If I were to pick a show that needs more love, or at least, honestly, just needs a documentary made about it, that's really what I feel. The real Ghostbusters cartoon.
Oh yeah.
It is such a fever dream the way that worked. They were forced to watch the movie every day before work. The original movie, the writers were like, you have to watch it so you can keep in tone with the show.
Jesus
Whoa.
Christ.
Oh my God.
That's other level.
That's psychotic.
Like, I think it actually worked.
Oh.
I loved the real Ghostbusters.
It is a great
I died.
fucking ridiculous.
No, it's
a
okay.
great
You're
cartoon.
just drunk.
But like the amount of history that goes into just like the weird coke bender that created the Ghostbusters cartoon is staggering. There's an episode in the real Ghostbusters called The Grundle, which is
Oh, I remember that one.
Do you know the Grundle? Yeah, the weird pedophile.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Grundle
It's like a
is
weird
a
Grundle.
man in a raincoat with like his creepy little fingers, and he's all like,
He's got, like, a big
boy,
yellow
let
hat,
me in your
too.
room. Yeah, 'cause he's in a trench coat, so
Yeah.
flash up. And the creator, the guy who wrote the Grundle episode, was basically like, I don't like pedophiles a lot. You know, strong stance. But like, he's like, I don't like pedophiles. I want to express how terrible pedophiles are. And then the network head was like, we're not going to let you just put a weird magic pedophile that throws fire on screen. And he's like, fuck you. And he did it anyways and told no one. Fucking put forth all the effort to write it, snuck it in. Somebody was reading the script for the Grundle, and he's like, yes, little boy, let me in. He's like, is he trying to fuck this kid? In the recording studio. And he goes, yes.
Holy shit!
But like, this guy had this crazy axe to grind, and he was gonna use Ghostbusters to do it. Like,
I just realized something. Hey, really quick, just break in for a moment. Next year, do we want to run behind the scenes of cartoons? Because literally between what you know, I know, and Xander knows, I'm pretty sure we can fill an hour. Do you guys want to hear a bunch of
no.
Okay. All right, so Chris doesn't want to be on it. He's emceeing it. We'll see you next year with behind the scenes of cartoons.
I've wanted to do a panel like that for years.
Fun.
That'll be fun.
Okay.
Oh, is it my turn?
Yeah, Busy. I guess you get to follow up Miraculous.
I can't follow up Magic
Accident
Pedophile.
Pedophile.
I'm sorry.
He spits fire like halfway through the episode, and you're like, when did he do that? Why did he spit fire? We needed a third act problem.
Oh, you think
We need that. Exactly.
That's exactly why. Oh, shit.
Well, honestly, I can't remember a lot of cartoons by name at least.
How old are you? I can tell you.
He can list them alphabetically. It is scary.
Like, what was it? The Wuzzles.
Oh my god!
Oh!
Wuzzles. That's it. I was like, do you all know
Hats
the
off to the Wuzzles, bro.
They do not
It
know
was,
the
yeah,
Wuzzles.
well, it was a long time ago.
The Wuzzles were animals that lived in the magical land of Wuz. It ran for one season. It was made by the creators of the Gummy Bears.
Gummy bears,
bouncing here and there and everywhere.
It ended up getting canceled specifically because it was on a different network than the one Disney was related with at the time.
Yeah.
And Disney did not want the Wuzzles competing with the Gummy Bears because it was being aired in the same Saturday morning block.
Wait a minute.
So they just stopped making the show.
Wuzzles the one with the stupid elephant that was
Yes.
also covered in, like the sheep elephant?
Yeah, there was the whole idea of the show was two or more animals that were mashed together into one animal.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Oh,
Bumble
no,
Lion.
yeah,
Bumble Lion.
Yeah. What you're griffing up is the fact that it's the Care Bears, not the Gummy Bears.
No, it was the
Yeah.
Care Bears.
Yeah, it was the Care Bears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He fucked up the Care Bears. And then in response to the Wuzzles existing...
Oh, no, it wasn't. Read the website. It was the Wuzzles, Gummy Bears. It was the same actors. Frank Walker did the voices on
Oh, yeah.
It was completely produced by Disney Studios.
Oh, yeah.
And Disney was pissed because it was the network that they sold it to was running it opposite the Gummy Bears when Disney was running the Gummy Bears.
Interesting.
That's why Disney yanked it. That's why Disney refused to renew.
Yeah. All I know is one of the reasons when the Wuzzles existed, that's when the Care Bear cousins came.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they were trying to...
Yeah.
They were like, shit, you can have other animals than bears.
However, the elephant was like what? It was an elephant an elephant and a kangaroo, and I always thought that they missed the perfect opportunity to make an elephant-rhino combination called Elephino.
That would be the very first episode of The Muppet Babies. Right after, and this is one of my all-time favorites, because I'm sorry, not Muppet Babies, The Muppets. One of the first episodes of The Muppets, Kermit leans over to a full glass of milk in a straw, puts his little puppet mouth over it, does some sucking motions, and you watch the milk go down, looks at the camera and says, think about it. It cuts over to the two comedians. What do you get when you cross an elephant with a rhino? They look at the camera, Elephino! And that was my introduction to the Muppets, and I have loved that show forever. They are the perfect level of surrealism for kids.
What's your cartoon?
I think my cartoon, underrated. We're talking underrated cartoons.
Yeah, something underrated or something you like specifically that you'd like to bring
Something that
attention
needed
to.
a little love. I think I was a big fan of the Twisted Tales of Felix the Cat. I think the perfect marriage of surrealism and nostalgia there.
Yeah.
Because it was very surreal. Felix was a very old cartoon character, so
He was
I mean,
wrong.
it was a good balance there, and I think we need another show like that.
There was
I mean,
two.
the revival of
Oh, I love that.
like everyone likes nostalgia. We need something like that that marries nostalgia with absurdity, or like just
Yes.
something brilliant. Because
So-
they redo stuff so often, but
That has happened, and I just found out recently. I'm just in the middle of it. Boozy has watched it. If you want a show that is literally nostalgia in a box, they took frames from the original cartoon and reused them. Harvey Birdman, Attorney-at-Law, might be the funniest thing
Oh
I've
my
ever
God.
seen when you're high.
Hey,
It works really well.
or even when you're not.
There are minors in the room!
No, like on an
Or if
airplane,
you're
you should
really
really
tired.
watch.
If you're really tired, here's the key about in like early to like mid 2000s animation, especially with Adult Swim. They designed all of their programming specifically. That's why they also had the 11-minute blocks. They designed all of their programming, one, because it was cheaper and they had no money. Two, they could only work. Two, it worked out better for more programming blocks. But three, they were assuming that you were either sleep deprived or you were high. So they structured their narratives and concepts around it.
Yeah, you could tell.
So like if you're really tired, or if you are high,
Influence.
watch those shows. They work best then, because a lot of people are like, man, I don't like Squidbillies. You're like, no, dude, it's just King of the Hill, but like if they were Hicks.
Yeah, no,
And
that's
it's
also-
like-
and also high.
And it's like just way better when you're like, okay, yeah, I'm like, it's like 3 a.m. and I shouldn't be up. I have like a paper due tomorrow. Squidbillies, it's a little funny now.
Yeah.
Just a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, so we've talked about, well, we've hinted at Armenian genocide alongside talking about nostalgic cartoons, and we've discussed who we want to put on the $20 bill. But guys, I know we all love Halloween.
I do love Halloween.
Halloween's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's getting a little bit too commercialized, don't you think? I mean, don't we need to go back and revisit some of the traditions? If we can reinvent a new tradition for Halloween to reinvigorate it, go back to its roots. We're going to go back all the way to Ireland, and we're going to discuss what new tradition do we scare the inhabitants into incorporating into Halloween to make it even better? Because Halloween, as a tradition, started basically as a means for the indigenous peoples of Ireland to say, oh fuck, it's going to get really cold soon. How do we appease the old gods and ward away the spirits who will come in, kill our crops, kill our livestock, and make sure little Timmy gets sick?
Now, I have no doubt that it is 100% accurate on the origins of the holiday Halloween, but the origins of the modern day Halloween are very American.
Oh, they
The
are.
origins of the modern day Halloween, getting dressed up, getting candy, was actually a means of small towns to take this holiday that had been traditionally a fairly young, destructive holiday. This idea of the shaving cream pranks, the throwing egg pranks, that is not new. Halloween was a day for the kids to go out and get rambunctious, so small towns, small municipalities started structuring it, and that is the basis for the modern day Halloween. I wish I could remember the state that first did it. They held a county-wide festival and encouraged everyone to show up, very family-centric, show up in costumes. That's the origin of bobbing for apples on Halloween. It was this particular event. The origin of giving out candy, it was this particular event. Halloween is one of the most American holidays, celebrating something that was basically a global phenomenon, and I am very proud of that, because honestly, Halloween, especially in Chicago, is a slightly dying holiday, and we try our best at my house to make it something special, including throwing a bunch of candy bars at kids and giving adults hard cider when it's cold out.
Who then turn around and give it to their children.
It was
That's
a
what we
horrible night. What's up?
One of my neighbors does that.
It's the
Gives
best.
hot spiked cider to the parents.
Yeah, no, it is the best. It is one of my favorite holidays. I love costuming. I love getting dressed up. And honestly, is there anything better than a kid coming to the door who's not excited about the candy, who's not excited about the holiday, who is genuinely excited about what they're wearing?
Yeah.
I don't have kids. That's how I live vicariously through children.
Yeah,
And I love-
You can borrow or
I mean, I'll borrow, but I'm not paying to rent.
The renter's insurance is crazy.
Warm apple juice.
So guys, all right. So how do we? Dude, you said Halloween is dying. How do we reinvigorate it? how do we reinvigorate it? What do we do? What do we do to make sure that everybody is back on track with Halloween again?
So that goes to the rest of them. However, Chris has it right. The current culture, corporate culture is taking a back seat, and corporate culture has taken over that holiday, and I think it made it less wholesome. That's one of the silliest things I've said, but I truly believe that. Christmas starting 4 months ago, that's weird. But Halloween it's tradition for the kids. Why are we corporatizing? Sell your candy and shut the hell up. That's all I want.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I want.
Okay. Boozy, what would you do to reinvigorate Halloween?
I'd make sure everybody knows that the government once stole a human corpse.
I love you.
Okay, there's a story behind that.
Oh, there's definitely. You all know who Daniel Boone is?
Yeah.
You know where Daniel Boone's buried?
Nope.
Neither does Kentucky nor Missouri. The reason being that Daniel Boone fled Kentucky. Fled is a strong word. They stole his land, and he got angry and said, "Screw you, I'm going to Missouri." He went to Missouri, where he died. Years later, Daniel Boone became a national frontier hero, right? But he's buried in Missouri. So what did the government of Kentucky do? Because he's now heavily associated with the opening of Kentucky as part of the West, they sent a team in the middle of the night to dig up Daniel Boone's body,
Nice.
which they then dug up and brought back to Kentucky and buried with full honors. And said, "We now have Daniel Boone's body," and Missouri said, "Actually, maybe not, because we're pretty sure you didn't dig up his grave. You see, some of his servants were buried alongside him, and we're pretty certain that you dug up one of theirs." The two states have been fighting for over 100 years over who has Daniel Boone's body, and both of them refuse to test the corpse in case they're the one who's wrong.
Oh my god.
That is amazing.
That's the greatest campfire story I've never heard.
That is so cool.
That's some decom shit.
General Matt Anthony Wayne had his body boiled and then rode across the state of Pennsylvania.
Just in general, okay, I understand.
Matt Anthony Wayne died of an illness. He was a Revolutionary War general. Died of an illness in a blockhouse near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, actually. Dies there, but he was from the eastern side of Pennsylvania, and his family wanted his body transported back. If you know what a blockhouse is, if you ever see, they look like towers, but they're just like rectangle on top of a bunch of wood, like a tower. They were basically holdfasts. They were like, if you're on the road and you're attacked, you could go in and lock yourself in there. They weren't forts, but they were these rooms with gun slots on top of the tower, and you could hold out there for a little while. He got sick and died in one. His family wanted his body returned to the eastern side of the state, so they boiled him in a cauldron, stripped the flesh from his bones, stuck his skeleton in a bag, and rode it across the state of Pennsylvania. However, they rode a little too fast, and some of his skeleton got lost along the way.
What's it?
Fun fact,
What are you gonna do?
though,
It's like
What are you gonna
a
do?
skeleton, breadcrumb trail of skeleton beds across
you
the state.
can go to the blockhouse. You can go to a recreation of the blockhouse he died in right now. Alright? It's open to the public, but they don't have tours or a security guard. You stop at the Masonic home that owns the land it's on and say, "Hey, I'd like the key," and they're like, "Sure, here, bring it back when you're done." So you go in. I've been there. You go in, you open it, and you go upstairs, and they have a recreation bed on it, and in that bed is a mannequin of dead Matt Anthony Wayne just chilling there. There's no lights, there's nothing else there, and then you go downstairs again, and if you look under the steps leading up to the blockhouse room, you know what you find? Matt Anthony Wayne's first tombstone. It's just chilling under the steps. Been there for 200 years now. Just chilling, just hanging out down there. It's cool.
I'd smoke weed on that.
The cauldron they took his flesh off in, and the chair he died in are both sitting in the county's Historical Society. And just to show you how classy they are in Western Pennsylvania, you know what they have under the cauldron? A thick fire.
Aww.
And you know what they have sticking out of the cauldron?
A bony arm.
Plastic skeleton.
Aww.
Because they're fancy.
That's perfect. One of my favorite things in my the museum I used to run. I used to run the Henry County Historical Society for about 2.5 years, and One of my favorite things to do would be to take the kids up to the second floor of the smaller house we had on site, which is where we stored all of our documents and the extra artifacts we didn't have room to put on display. And one of those rooms was the recreation of a doctor's office. And it had a skeleton in it, an actual, real skeleton who had died on the property. And I don't know how we got it, and I don't know how it was legal for us to still show it there because it was actual, real human remains. But the best thing ever was to take it upstairs and go, hey kids, did you see the skeleton? Yes. Do you think he's funny? Yes. Do you know what? Do you think he's kind of creepy? A little bit. Mm-hmm. Well, do you guys know there's a skeleton inside of you right now?
I think one of the best...
Can we circle back to the fact that your museum, from what you just described, sounds like it went grave robbing for an exhibit?
That was...
Sorry, is that not what your museum does?
It was open for 113 years and has never closed its doors to the public. How the hell do you think they managed it?
Okay, well, in that case, I can tell you exactly why it's legal for you all to have it. The moratorium on the sale of human body parts cannot be punished retroactively.
I was wondering about that.
Holy shit!
That's why if you ever go to like a fan convention, like, it's a real human skull, you'd be like, really? Is it? Because that's like against 4 federal laws, dude.
Yeah.
Unless you have a particular license, as that gentleman in the back knows.
Which actually brings me to my question. I think Kage might know the location for this. Kage, help me out. There is a gentleman who was in charge of one of the most world-renowned theaters, and I cannot for the life of me remember which one. And when he died, he left his skull to the theater to be performed in Hamlet. Do you know what theater that is?
Wow.
I want to say it's an English theater.
It would have to be. I do not know.
I cannot remember. There is, take it upon yourselves, look it up. I think this is such a cool story. This gentleman was in charge of this theater for his entire life. I believe he inherited it from his family. He thought that the theater was life, and upon his deathbed, he bequeathed his skull to Hamlet. And to this day, when they perform Hamlet, the skull used in the Horatio scene is his actual skull, and that is how he wanted to be remembered. And damn, if that isn't classy as hell.
Yeah.
But imagine being the first guy to get that skull. Like, that's the guy's skull. And you're like, oh.
Don't drop it.
Don't mention Hamlet. That's how you have a bad one. Like, dude, I'm holding a man's skull. This is going to be a bad performance.
Yeah, like, it's just like, I'm trying to remember my lines, but this is a real human skull. It's a little weird.
You're just looking at it going, the skull is looking at you going, yeah, I did it better.
Yeah.
I would
Like,
go the Jeremy Bentham route. Jeremy Bentham was a philosopher who, when he died, he had himself taxidermied.
What?
It's actually, is it the Museum of London he's in?
It's
Or
a
is the-
it's a university
Or is it the
museum.
University Library?
It's a university museum. He had by taxidermy dedicated to it. It is still in a glass case outside of the library.
No shit.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
because of the process at the time, the head did not survive really. So they have the real head, but the head that is on display is not his actual head.
They just borrowed it from somebody?
Yeah, because
is it like a completely different art style?
It's
Is it African American?
well,
It's a bad Photoshop in real life.
My thought was like that if they had limited object, they're like, well, we can give them like a scarecrow head.
It's
something better.
It's a basketball with a wig and googly eyes.
Get something better.
Kage?
It is the Royal Shakespeare Society.
Thank you.
The skull is that of the late pianist Andrei Tchaikovsky.
Thank you.
No actor was willing to actually use it on stage.
I
They
knew
were
it!
afraid the first person who was willing to use it on stage was David Tennant.
Holy shit! What?
Damn.
Yes.
Fuck
He
yeah,
was the first
Tennant.
person brave enough to use it in anything but rehearsals.
While we're talking about famous people and their corpses, as we should.
They
Who remembers Masterpiece Theater?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
You guys remember the host of Masterpiece Theater?
Yeah.
Alistair Cooke.
You know what happened to Alistair Cooke?
He got hooked.
Yeah.
Did you get booked?
I actually wrote about this. This was one of my Freaky Friday posts on Lawyers and Liquor.
Oh, I must have missed this one.
Alistair Cooke, his directions were to dispose of his body in an inexpensive manner and spread his ashes. His daughter found what was apparently a too good to be true cremation deal, and it was too good to be true because they were selling organs and bones for transplant and research from the corpses without consent of the body, the family. Alistair Cooke's body, he died of cancer. Alistair Cooke's body was dissected, his skeleton removed and replaced with PVC piping and wadding.
What?
And cremated.
Oh.
They're pretty sure they've located most of the people who got sections of his, because it's like when I say transplant, there's a transplant procedure where they take a section of bone and they implant it in. It's normally used to treat, like, I think leukemia and stuff.
Yeah,
Stuff where it's coming out of marrow.
What the shit?
They're pretty sure they located all the people who got those portions of his skeleton because every single one of them came down with the relatively rare type of cancer he died from.
Oh, no.
So the next time you see a rerun of Masterpiece Theater, just remember Alistair Cooke was dissected, sucked up his bones, and had his internal organs replaced with wadding, sawdust, and PVC piping.
Well, on that happy note, Boozy and QM, I do have something for you guys.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Yes, it is.
Serial killer.
Yeah, this is the last thing. So this is for you guys. You know, I try to make something for you guys at every con we go to. This one is for you.
And it's frequently terrifying, so thank
It's
you.
frequently terrifying, but this one, I think it's actually pretty sweet. This is for the charity.
Oh!
And I'm going to ask that you guys sign it, if you would please.
I am going to need, after I sign this, Tchaikovsky's skull.
Yeah, you would.
That's cute.
So this.
Oh my god, this is so cute.
And these two prints are for you guys. One is for Boozy's office. The other one is for you guys to auction off. If you guys have a thinner marker.
Yeah, let's use that.
Okay. And that one is for you guys. Those two are for you guys. The other one is for the charity auction. And this is my way of saying thank you. We're not even starting. You can't do that.
Give me my shirt back. Wait, we talking about the $20 bill? I would have put William Tecumseh Sherman on it.
Goddamn right.
Because
That
it would
makes
piss off the South.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes from Sherman is actually, we went out for glory, came home covered in wounds, and saw our names misspelled in the newspapers.
What was it with Sherman? A certain city, I forget what, had sent troops out to Sherman, or sent delegates out to Savannah did it and it worked. Like Savannah, when Sherman was marching on Savannah, the city fathers basically went to him and said, look, we're going to surrender. Please don't burn our city. And he was like, okay, cool. But prior to that, another city had, maybe Atlanta, another city had attempted that same thing. Like, we're going to declare ourselves an open city and let you march in. And he's like, yeah, that's great and all, but we're still going to burn it down because you need to learn your lesson.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, Tipsy Time Machine comes to a disappointing and disheartening close. Thank you guys. Thank you all my fellow panelists for coming out. Thank you guys for coming. Hope you have a good rest of the convention.
Guys, do not forget a few things because it came up. Don't forget, as much as we enjoy drinking, drink responsibly, know your limits. And number two, if you guys enjoyed this panel, if you were inspired by this panel, next year, put in for your own panels. Guys, this is an amazing convention with amazing audiences. Get out there, get panels in. Thank you so much for joining us, and good night.
Ernor, there's the money for the charity, I think, in that bag there. Hand it to the fair.
Yeah, to get a fair. It's not from
I'll take care of
Then he can contact me later and go, where's the charity money?
Somebody put in a receipt for Jungle Gyms.
Oh, that might actually be the receipt that was in there beforehand.
Like, we should give it to the charity, though. Like, here, this is
all I had, man.
It's like a little IOU.
I want to see the person who's brown bagging a charity bag, and they're just like, "What's in there?" And you're like, "Money."
That's a receipt.
That went well. Yay.
Alright, guys. Oh, boy.
Glad you guys had fun.
We're going to have to get more
As you
friends.
exit the room, the first parade is actually going by.
So now you guys have all three. You can just kind of line them up there.
My dad looks great.
As far as pissing off the
Hey, Chris,
boss,
do you mind
doesn't
taking a
put
photo
it piss
for
off
Yeah, I can do
Jackson
that.
the most that he was put on the money.
Silver Gattoman, he bought me a coffee. Silver Gattoman, here is the song for thee. He likes to video all the panels at the cons. You should go and watch them whether they are short or long. Surrealist, you video that's not a jibe. All of you go to his YouTube channel and like and subscribe.